I feel like this video is messy and really rambly, and I'm sure it's gonna be a real pain in the ass to edit. I don't know how much editing I'm actually going to do. I would love to hear what you think. Please feel free to make a video response. Comment down below in the comments if you do make a video and let me know so I can go check it out, or tag me in the title. And maybe we can use the hashtag light and dark. Hey friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all are doing well. How are you? How have you been? If you're new here, hi, I make witchy content on different social media platforms. You can find all of those links down below in the description. If you're a returning subscriber, it's really good to see you back. And let's get into today's video. I'm feeling kind of inspired to just sort of talk off the cuff about this concept of the light and dark, like half of the year. Before we start, I want to say that I am currently recording this video about a week and a half before the fall equinox. Also, I did post about this on Facebook because I was really curious to hear what some of your thoughts were. I really love this time of year because I feel like we're in this liminal space between the waning summer and the waxing autumn. And here in the Midwest, it's still pretty hot, but our nights are now starting to get a little bit cooler. They're in the 50s and the 60s, but then during the day, we're still having like 80 to 90 degree days. I really do love this time of year, and I feel like it's kind of bringing me the hope and the promise of the harvest and cooler, calmer days to come. Also, all of the Burr months are my absolute favorite. September, October, November, December, and then usually by the time I start getting to January is where my seasonal affective disorder kind of starts kicking in. But I want to talk about the light and dark half of the year in this video. And I don't really have anything prepared. Like I've mentioned, I'm just kind of talking off the cuff about this. But I was doing some reflection, as I feel like the autumn tide sort of calls us to do and calls us to lean into. And I've been thinking about just the concept of the light and dark half of the year. And for those of you who have been following me for a while, you know that I'm in the Red Thread Academy. The Red Thread Academy is an online traditional folkloric American witches academy. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Check it out if you're interested. But part of this work in the academy is sort of returning to these very foundational concepts, right? And I think that's part of why often the craft is referred to as a spiral path, because we continuously spiral back to things that, you know, we thought we had already gleaned the deepest of mysteries from, to then glean even further mysteries from it. And I feel very in line and very in rhythm with that spiral in terms of this, just thinking about the light and dark half of the year. I also do want to preface in saying that I am aware that not all witches split their year. I am aware that not all witches follow the wheel of the year. And I'm aware that not all witches follow the wheel of the year that, you know, Gardner kind of popularized. I personally do celebrate the wheel of the year, but I celebrate it in a way that does sort of deviate from the way that Gerald Gardner presented it. The wheel of the year that I observe still has its 8 sort of spokes. Like I celebrate midsummer, I celebrate winter solstice, the fall equinox, the spring equinox, and the cross quarter days. But as a trad witch, I'm trying to align the wheel of the year more with my local geography and my landscape. And as I've been practicing a form of American traditional witchcraft now for about 3.5-ish, 4 years or so, give or take, I've been incorporating more and more elements from like my natural landscape. Part of that is of course corn, and working with corn and working with the corn husk and working with the vegetable and like bringing that into some of my harvest celebrations for the first, second, and third. And I've been thinking a lot about the names that we have for Gardener's Wheel of the Year. And I want to say too that in no way do my thoughts and opinions about my own practice and what is appropriate for me, in no way do I intend for that to sort of tell other people or police other people about their practice. But I'm also seeing a lot of discourse about the second harvest. And I saw some of this last year as well. There's a content creator in particular, the author of, I think it's Welsh Witchcraft or Welsh Magic, Mhara, amazing, adore her. And she's Welsh, and she was talking about this very thing, the second harvest. And she was talking about the fall equinox. And I even now sort of, I feel like after I've been more educated on it, hesitate around saying, because like in the Midwest, as an English speaker, I want to say Mabon, like as a total, like, I don't know why. It's, I think, pronounced Mabon, like, but there's some holler spirit in me that is like, oh, we're celebrating Mabon. And it's just so in my head. That's how people around me pronounce it. But I do think that there is some cultural context surrounding the name for the second harvest. And if I can remember, I'm going to try to link her post in the description, because I know that some of you watching who might not be familiar are probably like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Feel free to check this out. It's really good. I might even like see if I can find one of her other videos and like stitch it maybe. Or not stitch it, because I guess this is YouTube, not TikTok, but you know what I mean. I might try to insert something here.
All of that is modern interpretation. Where does the term Mabon come from, and what does it have to do with the autumn equinox? It's that time of year again. 2024 has flown by and we're already heading forth towards the autumn equinox, where a bunch of modern pagans and witches will be celebrating Mabon. Would it surprise you if I told you that the word Mabon has absolutely nothing to do with the autumn equinox and is actually the name of a Welsh god? Hello, my name is Mhara Starling. Rude and odd to me that you're naming the entire using the word Mabon. Should you just retire it and stop using it within your modern paganism and witchcraft today? That's up to you, really. There are a lot of Welsh people who would say, yes, stop it, we don't like it. I'm not one of those, though. I say I don't mind you bringing up the name Mabon within these festivals, so long as you actually give him a little nod within your rituals and such. It feels very rude and odd to me that you're naming the entire festival Mabon and then not once acknowledging Mabon the god. So my personal recommendation as a Welsh person to those of you watching who might not have known this, or who are not Welsh and don't revere the gods in your practice, is if you're going to call it Mabon, at least read the myth of how Culhwch wan Olwen, read up on who Mabon is within Welsh mythology, and honour him a little bit within your practice. Learn how to pronounce his name in the traditional Welsh way and not Mabon. Essentially approach the god with respect and acknowledge the fact that his name being associated with the autumn equinox is a bit iffy. And don't bloody shoot the messenger. Almost every time I make these kind of videos, I get bloody attacked for just talking about my culture. I'm sorry if it offends you that in my culture Mabon has nothing to do with the autumn equinox and that his name is pronounced Mabon, not Mabon, but that's really not my fault.
So, circling back to the main topic, I apologize for the squirrel brain. I'm thinking about the light and dark half of the year. And as someone who does work with the Wheel of the Year in my practice, and I know that many witches and neo-pagans here in the States do, not all, okay, but many do, what does this look like for me? And I'm thinking about in terms of the American witchcraft tradition that, you know, I am studying and a part of, and what it looks like through the eyes of that tradition. And I feel like I've seen three main popular ways that the Wheel of the Year is often split. The first way that I have seen people split the Wheel of the Year is from solstice to solstice. And this was the way that I sort of initially have been observing the light and dark half of the year. And the sort of philosophy behind this is that at the winter solstice, the literal sun, okay, with a U, is reborn, and that light then is sort of reignited and relit. And every day after the winter solstice, we get more and more light here in the Northern Hemisphere, leading up to the brightest day being the summer solstice. And after that, we get less and less and less light as the light sort of wanes. And I think that taking the wheel of the year and splitting the light and dark half of the year from solstice to solstice in philosophy, because there's practice, which is one thing, and then there's philosophy, kind of like beauty school. You have like your practical, which is like your hands-on work, and then you have your theory, where you learn about bacteria and electricity and sanitation and chemicals and yeah. Breaking this down, I kind of like to split that up into those two distinct categories of our philosophy or our orthodoxy and our practice or our orthopraxy, because our beliefs shape and sculpt our practices, and our practices should be sort of in alignment with what our beliefs are. So I feel like splitting the wheel of the year from solstice to solstice in philosophy is a very celestial way of separating the year, because it's literally corresponding to light. How much and how little. It's the waxing and waning aspect of the celestial world of the sun, and solar rituals and solar aligned sort of folk practices centering around the winter and summer solstice. In terms of a celestial observance, like rituals that might involve that, I think would sort of connect with the practice of that philosophy. Another way that I have seen the split be observed, which is also a way that I observe it as well, is from equinox to equinox. So we have from the spring equinox down to like the fall equinox, and that would be our lighter half of the year because it's post that earthly equilibrium of the equalness between light and dark, night and day, if you will. So that's when the lighter half of the year is waxing, right? And then from the second harvest or the fall equinox to the spring equinox, that is when sort of the earthly terrestrial realm is waning, or the darker half of the year. And I feel like to sort of compare and contrast these two modalities, which I feel like, at least in my sphere, tend to be the most popular, is, are we honoring the light and dark half of the year as above or so below? In the sense that from equinox to equinox, it's much more connected, in my opinion, to the agricultural cycle and the physical landscape in the world around us. As opposed to, I feel like from solstice to solstice, we're looking at it more, like I've mentioned before, from a celestial standpoint. From equinox to equinox, I think the practices that center around that are still fairly similar as the practices that align from solstice to solstice. I think it's just more grounded, and I feel as though maybe it's even less ceremonial and less planetary, less celestial, and more agricultural, more folkish, and more down to earth. And that's in the RTA, one way that I've been sort of connecting more with these concepts of the light and dark half of the witch's wheel. And in American traditional witchcraft, it is split from equinox to equinox. That is, not to say that if you observe it differently, then so mote it be, kind of thing. But there is this distinct connection with the land and the cycles of the earth. And I think aligning your light and dark half of the witch's wheel to equinox is incredibly grounded. Another way that I have seen people split the wheel is from the third harvest or Samhain to May Day or Beltane. And I feel like this philosophy is mostly inspired by, from what I've seen, a lot of American pagans. And, Samhain, around this time of the year, of course, we have our season of the dead culturally. And then we also have the season of the witch culturally, we have the notion of the thinning of the veil, and it's supposed to be this time where the realm of spirits and our realm, our midworld, collide. And interactions between those two realms, our earthly physical midworld and the realm of spirits, the underworld, whatever you want to call it, sort of collide, and interactions can happen much more naturally and easily and frequently. And then there's this idea around May Day that the realm of the fair folk, or the other world, and our world sort of collide. And so it's sort of like this 3-circle paradigm, if you can kind of picture it, where the midworld is here and these two realms sort of spin around the wheel. And when they are in those alignments, then that is when the veil between the realm of spirits or the realm of the other world, right, is at its thinnest and has the most activity. And I feel like I could observe this practically through really a strong emphasis on flight, whether it be flying to the underworld or whether it be flying to the other world. For me, I can definitely see how all 3 of these modalities can be a thing. And when I made this post on Facebook, there were a lot of different opinions, but most people were in these 3 camps. I would love to hear, out of those 3, if you belong to one of those camps, which one would you say that you belong to? And I feel like you can kind of, from a chaos witch standpoint, work from all 3 of those modalities. But tell me about how you do it in practice, because it's one thing to actualize something in philosophy, but how do you put it into practice? Like, how do you work that belief? How do you work that, if that makes sense? So I know that this video has probably been super rambly, and I do apologize for that. Like I said, I didn't make this into like a script or even have bullet points or anything that I'm working off of. This is totally just off the cuff, but I've kind of been thinking on it and like ruminating on it. You know what I mean? And just thinking of like how I observe this in my own practice, because for me, I do kind of feel like maybe I do a little bit of all 3. I mean, I think it kind of depends on which aspect we're talking about, right? I can definitely see the celestial divide. And that is the way that I sort of came into this practice of separating the witch's wheel in light and dark. That's the way I came into this. And then through training and through the American folkloric traditional witchcraft, I have sort of been introduced to this beautiful concept of from equinox to equinox, which, like I said, feels very terrestrial, feels very earthly, feels very grounded, feels very connected to the elements, in a way that solstice to solstice just doesn't. Not that this isn't about, okay, better, less than, whatever. This is just about what resonates. And, you know, with the solstice to solstice, I feel like it's so much more celestial that in a way I feel a little bit detached from that at times. So I feel like celebrating the divide on those 2 specific Sabbats of the solstices is a beautiful thing. And I love those festivities, and I still feel very connected to that. I guess in order to kind of fuse these 2 with equinox and solstices, I feel like per our Sabbat celebrations, we have more of that celestial focus on the summer and winter solstice. And we have more of the earthly focus on the equinoxes, right? Much more tied to like literal agriculture and the land. So in that way, I do feel like I celebrate both of those. And same for the 3rd modality, which I feel like isn't as popular as the other 2, but I mean, equally valid. And also, if you have another way that you separate your wheel, I would love to hear it. If you're like me and you kind of layer these on top of each other, I would love to hear about that too. But with seances, necromancy, spirit work, traveling to the underworld, necromancy around the sort of third harvest tide, and with like Walpurgisnacht and the realm of the fair and the other world, I feel like those are so connected to the other realms and with flight. And I almost in a way also feel like that feels so much more lunar to me in a way, because I guess since I do a lot of flight in alignment with the lunar cycle, if you've read my book, Ambrosia's Book of Witch Flight, I wrote about this, shameless self-plug, but doing witch flights on dark moons or full moons and traveling to other realms, I feel like there is a strong emphasis on the full moon that falls closest to those cross-quarter days, be it Samhain or Beltane. And I feel like there is this magical pull and this magical influence. And so by observing those two moons that fall closest to it specifically, I feel like they sort of create different access points to the realm of spirits and the other. So tell me what you think. I feel like this video is messy and really rambly, and I'm sure it's going to be a real pain in the ass to edit. I don't know how much editing I'm actually going to do. I would love to hear what you think. Please feel free to make a video response. Comment down below in the comments if you do make a video and let me know so I can go check it out, or tag me in the title. And maybe we can use the hashtag light and dark. I don't know. I feel like that seems like a good hashtag, light and dark. I think we're gonna go with that. So anyways, until next time, thank you all so much for watching and putting up with me. It's a pleasure, and make sure to drink your water, okay, friend, and have you a little snack. Take care of yourself, especially as the seasons are shifting. You know, a lot of people start getting sick. Have your elderberry gummy vitamins, drink your water, start having some immune support tea, maybe in the evenings. Take care of yourself. You're worth it, okay? Till next time, blessed be, and I will see you in hell. Bye.